Hello everyone and welcome back to our discussion. In today's video, we'll be exploring Chapter 3, Time and Beyond Time, where Lewis delves into the nature of time and how it relates to our understanding of God. Did you know that time is a concept that has puzzled thinkers and philosophers for centuries? Well, in this chapter, Lewis helps us navigate through this complex topic with his characteristic clarity and wit. So, let's dive in. Lewis begins the chapter by examining the idea that time is a part of our experience as human beings, but not necessarily a fundamental aspect of the universe itself. He suggests that our understanding of time is limited by our own human perspective and that it's possible that time might not even exist beyond our realm. To illustrate this concept, Lewis uses an example of a train moving along a track. From the perspective of the passengers on the train, time appears to be moving forward as they pass landmarks and watch the scenery change. But from a higher vantage point, say from a helicopter flying above the train, the entire journey is visible all at once, and the concept of time loses its significance. Lewis also explores the idea that God exists beyond time, existing in an eternal present, outside of our linear understanding of past, present, and future. This idea of God existing beyond time has been explored by many theologians and philosophers throughout history, but Lewis presents it in a way that is accessible and easy to understand. One of the most profound points Lewis makes in this chapter is that God is not just another being within the universe but is the creator of the universe and therefore transcends it. He argues that God is not a part of the universe, but rather the universe is a part of God. This idea is central to the Christian understanding of God and helps us to better understand the relationship between God and the world. Here are some quotes from Chapter 3, Time and Beyond Time that I found particularly insightful. God is not infinite in the same sense in which space is infinite. To speak of God's infinity is simply to say that he is not finite, that there is no end to him in the way that there is an end to a road or a line, page 67. All that we call past is always present in some sense. And more than that, every event that has ever happened is still happening in some sense, page 70. God is not the next stage in a sequence of cause and effect. He is something altogether different from anything we can imagine in the world of space and time, page 74. If you picture time as a straight line along which we have to travel, then you must picture God as the whole page on which the line is drawn, page 71. For the present is the point at which time touches eternity, page 73. If you are a Christian, you do not have to believe that all the other religions are simply wrong all through, page 78. I encourage you to read this chapter for yourself and dive deeper into these concepts. Reflective questions. How does the concept of God being outside of time challenge your understanding of God's nature? Possible answer. The idea of God being outside of time can be difficult to comprehend, but it also emphasizes his transcendence and omnipotence. It reminds us that God is not bound by our limited human understanding of time and space. What do you think C.S. Lewis means when he says, "For the present is the point at which time touches eternity"? I think this quote suggests that the present moment is a bridge between time and eternity. It reminds us that God is present in every moment, and that we have the opportunity to experience his eternal nature in the present moment. Well, as Lewis points out, the idea of time and eternity is mind-boggling, but it's also fascinating to think about. In this chapter, he dives deeper into what it means to live in time and to have a sense of the eternal. He explains that, unlike God, who exists outside of time, we as human beings experience time in a linear fashion, moving forward from one moment to the next. One interesting example he uses to illustrate this is the difference between thinking about the future and thinking about the past. When we think about the future, we imagine it as something that we are moving towards, with an infinite number of possibilities before us. But when we think about the past, it's like looking at a road that we have already traveled down, with a finite number of possible outcomes. This is because, as Lewis explains, our experience of time is bound up with the physical universe, which has a definite beginning and end. Another fascinating concept that Lewis explores in this chapter is the idea of God's timelessness. He explains that, for God, all moments in time are present simultaneously. In other words, God is not limited by time in the same way that we are. This is a difficult idea to grasp, but Lewis does an excellent job of making it accessible to his readers. One of the most profound quotes from this chapter. He never does anything else except be himself, and therefore they who summon all the wit and reasonings of the world cannot lessen by one jot the reality of his claim. Page 74. So, I hope this brief summary of Chapter 3 of Beyond Personality has given you a taste of the fascinating ideas that C.S. Lewis explores in this book. As always, I encourage you to read the book in its entirety to gain a deeper understanding of his arguments. Thank you for watching. And if you have any thoughts or questions about this chapter, please leave them in the comments section below.